Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Hatchetfield Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing the third play in Team Starkit's Hatchetfield series, Nerdy Prudes Must Die. So, here's a little fun fact. This play was actually supposed to come out a lot earlier than it actually did. So, after Black Friday, the plan for Team Starkit was that they were going to make a third Hatchetfield play. One that would, of course, take place in its own continuity, but like with Black Friday to The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, it would be connected to the greater Hatchetfield multiverse. But something occurred that kind of put a damper on the whole thing and halted production. The pandemic. Yeah, at that point, that's when the pandemic hit, and as a result, everyone had to quarantine and self-isolate. And as a result, any production that was being done to make either this play and the next thing we'll be looking at was basically just halted. With that said, Team Starkit was not idle during this time. As in the meantime, they did end up making their own little Skype plays, so to speak. In this case, they wound up creating the Nightmare Time series, which like I said during the prologue, I was originally planning to look at as part of these vlogs, but as it kind of got closer and closer to the actual vlog date, I decided just to focus on the main core plays of the Hatchetfield multiverse. So, like I said, Nightmare Time will get its due, but right now it's just the plays. But with that said, that doesn't mean the plays were never going to happen. As once the pandemic had started to pass by, Team Starkit did begin production again on making these plays, and as such, in 2023, the third play in the Hatchetfield series was finally produced. Nerdy Prudes Must Die. Now, I didn't watch this play for the longest time. Not because I wasn't interested. God, no. It's mostly just because I wanted to get through Nightmare Time. Because the thing is, just like how there were common elements from The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals that managed to make their way into Black Friday, there are aspects of the Nightmare Time episodes that managed to work their way into Nerdy Prudes Must Die. As, like I said, while most of the stories in the Hatchetfield multiverse do take place in their own separate continuities, there are elements of each story that do coincide and do overlap between stories. So, as a result, I did want to watch Nightmare Time because sometimes something that happens in one story does kind of lead to explaining something else in another story. So basically, I just wanted to get through Nightmare Time. But I did eventually finish Nightmare Time. In fact, I finished it a couple weeks ago, and thus I finally decided to give Nerdy Prudes Must Die a shot, and I loved it. I mean, like, holy shit, I should have seen this play sooner. I thought it was amazing when I first saw it. With that said, do I still think it's amazing now? Yes, I do. But why do I think it's amazing? Well, let's get to our long-ass plot summary and find out. And of course, the film actually begins with a murder. As we open up with a pair of police officers from the Hatchetfield Police Department as they come across the body of one Richard Lipschitz. And apparently, based on what they can tell, he was bullied to death, got his nipples twisted off, and he was drowned in a toilet as part of a lethal swirly. And yes, and on top of that, whoever killed him left a message, wrote it on the wall in the victim's own blood, and the message is, Nerdy Prudes Must Die. And apparently young Richie is not the first to die. But what's going on? Why did he die? Well, to get the answer to that question, we have to go back a little bit. As the play flashes back to, I'm guessing either 2 or 3 weeks prior, as we open up with our first musical number for the play set in the Hatchetfield High School, as we have the students of Hatchetfield singing about how high school is pretty much murder and how they can barely survive one single day. However, of all these students, we meet 2 in particular who end up becoming a couple of our main characters. In this case, one is a girl named Stephanie Lauder, and she's the daughter of the mayor of Hatchetfield. And the other main character is a nerdy kid by the name of Peter. And guess what? Peter is the younger brother of Ted from The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. His last name is also Spankowski. Yes, Ted's last name is Spankowski. It's Spankoff. Let that sit in and let's move on. But yeah, basically during the opening number, Steph wants to cheat on a test with Peter's help, as she had not had any time to study the previous night because she was on a Twitter flame war about basically a a problematic pooch or whatever. And as such, while Peter does consider helping Steph out, they end up getting basically their plans to cheat end up getting overheard by another student, a girl named Grace Chastity, who, yes, we did hear mention in the first Hatchetfield play, and now I realize she was the one who was supposed to be babysitting Tom's kid in the second play. But yeah, she ends up catching them, and well, she doesn't want to tolerate cheaters, so she immediately squeals on them and tells the teacher. And as such, once the song ends, the teacher tells Peter and Steph that they have to go to the principal's office. As such, Peter's a little upset that he's going to go in trouble, but for Steph, it's no big deal. Apparently, she's sort of a delinquent in the school and tends to get in trouble a lot. And the only reason that consequences don't tend to stick for her is because she's the mayor's daughter, and the mayor kind of has to keep a squeaky clean reputation in order to stay in the mayor's seat, so basically his daughter could get away with murder and he'd cover it up. But with that being said, she's still not supposed to be doing these things, and while there will be consequences, she doesn't really care that much. However, Peter Spankowski does, as he's basically, like I said, he's a nerdy kid, and so he tends to be the target of a lot of bullying, and as such, he wants to just avoid attention as much as possible, and so he doesn't want to be, and so it's not the fact that he's being sent to the principal's office that's upsetting him, though that doesn't make him happy, but the fact that he talked with Steph, and thing is, Steph's one of the cool kids in school, and if any of the other popular kids hear that he was talking with her, then he's going to get a lot of harassment. But ultimately, as the two have a little back and forth, they do sort of click a little, as Steph finds that Peter is endearing, finds him funny, and she even comments on his clothes as he wears suspenders and a little bow tie, and she basically makes fun of him a little, just some light teasing about how he wears the bow tie and the suspenders, and they make him look even more nerdy. And he defends both of them as he thinks the bow tie is pretty cool and he likes wearing it, and the suspenders, well, they're to stop him, they're to make sure he doesn't get pants, as apparently in second grade someone pantsed him, and ever since then he gained the nickname of Micro Peter. I'll let you guess how he got that nickname. But basically, the two of them do seem to hit it off a little, but the bell ends up ringing, and when Peter hears it, he basically runs off because he doesn't want someone finding him. And it's through the next song sequence called Literal Monster that we get a sense of who he's running from. And once the song is over, we meet, well, basically the villain for our play, Max Jaegerman. Pretty much the stereotypical jock archetype in every sense of the word. He's the school star player, he rules the hallways, and he basically likes pounding on nerds because that's what people like him do. In fact, I'm going to say this right now, Max is a joy. He is a stereotype in every sense of the word, and he is fully aware of it. He knows that high school is probably where he's going to peak, so he basically wants to make the most of his time there as much as possible, so he takes whatever power he has and this lords it over others, to the point where we actually see the good Mr. Richard Lipschitz, as he has the unfortunate honor of running into Max in the hallway, and Max, as a show of power, ends up flicking him in the nuts as punishment for being in his hallway while he's in there. However, as Max's friends end up congratulating him for, wailing on the nerd, well, another nerdy character shows up as we see Grace again, as she's protesting an upcoming homecoming dance because she doesn't want guys and girls grinding up against each other because it's so impure. Yeah, Grace is basically the good Christian girl of the school, although she is very much the archetype of the hypocritical Christian, the people who use their faith to belittle and look down on others. And yes, I do not like Grace Chastity, and you'll see why when this play is over. But the thing is, while Max's friends are making fun of Grace, Max tells them to back the hell off and even punches one of his friends in the gut to get him to shut up. Why? Because he has a thing for Grace. As, yeah, he knows that Grace would never go for him, and when he tries to, put the moves on Grace, offer to hold her books for her, even calls her a dirty girl, and Grace clearly is affected by that, he just looks at her and thinks, God, I want her. It's basically just a forbidden fruit thing. Like, the more she tells him no, the more he wants to get with her. It's a very weird dynamic, but yeah, he ends up having his own version of the Literal Monster song, which again is actually a really damn good song, so I like it. But either way, we end up cutting to later after school as we see Steph coming home and being chastised by her dad's secretary, a Miss Tessmacher, who basically who chastises her for not being able to answer her calls during the day, even though she was at school, so she couldn't have. But yeah, the mayor ends up confronting his daughter, and he was able to stop the principal from punishing her, but only under the promise that he would punish her. And well, how he plans to punish Steph? he takes her phone away, as the phone is basically her smartphone is literally the center of her whole world, so taking that away will deprive her of everything that she holds of value. And while he does make a motion to smash the phone, which I really have no idea if he was planning to do or not, because before he even gets a chance, Steph puts her hand between the hammer and the phone. Basically, he does tell Steph that she can't have the phone back until she gets her grades up. He doesn't care how she does it, she just needs to do it. And as such, she walks off with the phone. In the meantime, though, we cut over to the library with Peter as we see him hanging out with both Richie and another girl named Ruth. Yeah, her name is Ruth. And Ruth is very much I'm not going to even call her a closet pervert. She is very much a depraved individual. She just wants someone to touch her, and she craves human companionship to the point where when telemarketers call her, she keeps them talking long enough until they hang up and blacklist her. It's funny. But yeah, Peter is hanging out with them because they need to be working on a project. But as they're working, Peter ends up getting a call, and it's from Steph, who I guess has his phone number somehow. Don't know how. But basically, she calls him on a payphone outside of a restaurant called Pasquale's, and, well, she needs help getting her grades up. As the thing is, while she could ask her friends to help her, well, she's the smart one in the group, so it lets you know how dumb her friends probably are. And as such, since Peter was the guy that she talked to earlier, and clearly they hit it off a little bit, she wants Peter to be her tutor. And as such, she asks if he wants to meet her at Pasquale's. And Peter's friends overhear this, and they basically just urge Peter to go and meet with her, because apparently Pasquale's is a hot dating site in Hatchetfield, and they think that she must want him or whatever. And so, well, Peter is a little hesitant to do this because he and Steph are in different social brackets. Eventually, he does agree to go and says he'll meet Steph in 20, which does lead to his own song about how he's getting excited to go see Steph, and how he thinks maybe it's luck, maybe he's a total dork, but you know what, he's going to enjoy this. But upon getting to Pasquale's, he's ambushed by Max and his friends in the parking lot. And while Peter does have a bit more gumption to him and is more ready to face up and ready to stand up against Max, well, Max doesn't really give a shit. He doesn't care if Steph is the one that asked Peter out to Pasquale's. So in Max's eyes, Peter is a nerd, and nerds do not belong with cool kids like Steph. And so, as such, to try and teach Peter a lesson, Max ends up beating the shit out of him. Although we don't end up seeing the beatdown, mostly because it happens off stage, as we end up cutting to the home of Grace Chastity and her parents. And her parents are just as white bread, gosh darn wonderful as Grace is. As they're just sitting around the table, minding their own business, Grace's father, who we learn is a realtor, says he's having problems selling this old house at the edge of town called the Waylon place, and Grace cites that the reason for that is because it's supposedly haunted. All the kids say so. Of course, the Chastitys don't believe that because there's only one ghost that they look up to, the Holy Ghost himself, and thus they just think it's hogwash and that it's only the ghost stories that keep people from buying the house. However, as Grace is at the dinner table, we find that what Max said earlier about her being a dirty girl may be more true than even she realizes, because as she asked her parents to pass food over to her, she makes several, I'm not even going to say double entendres. The way she says them, she makes it clear that she wants someone to fuck her, and even she realizes that these words are coming out of her mouth, and she's horrified by them. Her parents hear them too, and all three of them assume that maybe she just needs a bath to, calm her nerves. And as such, Grace goes upstairs and strips down into a swimsuit as she decides to take a bath. But while she's in the bath, she begins having a dirty fantasy about Max coming in, saying he's there for a bowl of dirty girl soup. It's gross too there. As he takes off his shirt, Grace sees his toned muscles and abs. She sees that he's got a crucifix necklace, meaning that he clearly cares about Jesus, but he says the thing he loves more than Jesus is fucking. And so he and Grace have a little duet about Grace being a dirty girl. But by the end of the song, as the Max fantasy fades away, it turns out that Grace began unconsciously touching herself. And so while Grace's dad comes in because he heard moaning, and this is not a moaning household, Grace is able to brush it off by saying she was groaning because she was taking a massive dump, which leads her father to go and get the plunger. But Grace is kind of horrified with herself for even doing that, and rather than realizing that she has urges that she needs to have addressed, she instead decides, no, this is Max's fault, and something needs to be done about him. And after she gets out of the bath, as she storms out of the bathroom. From there, we cut to the next day at high school, as we see that Steph is looking around the place looking for Peter, and as such, she ends up confronting Peter's friends, Richie and Ruth, And after she basically threatens them, they tell her that Peter's hiding out in the boys' bathroom. And as such, all three teenagers, and I'm just gonna say right now, everybody's 18 in this play, so the dirty jokes are for people who are legally aged. They all go into the bathroom, and sure enough, there's Peter hiding in there, nursing a black eye. As such, Steph is actually pissed off about this because she was the one that asked Peter out, and it's not fair that someone like Max should dictate who Peter can and can't talk to. And as such, Steph wants to go and give Max a piece of her mind, but Peter and his friends urge Steph not to do it because if she does that, it'll just make things worse. But Steph at the same time wants to do something. They could talk to the principal. Maybe they could talk to the principal, but they say that why would the principal do anything? Max Jaegerman is the star player. He would cover for him. It's not going to help anything. It's just going to make things worse. Well then, how fortunate then that as the group is talking about it, who should show up but Grace Chastity, who had come into this bathroom because she saw two girls going into the boys' bathroom, at which point she gives them demerits and tells them to have detention, but she thinks that they all have a common enemy right now. All of them have an issue with Max. And she thinks that if they want to take Max down, then they need to strip him of his power. And Grace knows exactly how to do it. As such, she has the group meet with her after school as she brings them to the old Waylon place, which she's able to get in since, well, like I said, her dad's the realtor and he has the keys to the place. And it's here where Grace does exposit more about the old house's history, that it apparently belonged to an eccentric old couple, the Waylons, and apparently the Waylons were cultists, as they came to town, and while they were responsible for building a lot of the town's more prominent structures, like an old mill, the Starlight Theater, and even a schoolhouse that would eventually become Hatchetfield High School, apparently they did a lot of depraved things behind the scenes. A lot of rituals, sex crimes, spells, and all that crap. And they basically continued flaunting this for a long time until a group of axe-wielding maniacs burst the door down and then sliced them to ribbons. But there are legends that say that the Waylons still haunt this house to this day. And it's those legends that Grace wants to take advantage of. As she and the rest of the group end up going inside, and what they plan to do is that they want to scare the shit out of Max. As the plan is that they're going to lure him to the house and then basically set up all these traps to make him think he's being haunted. And ultimately their end goal, they want to film him getting the piss scared out of him to the point where he will, quite literally, piss his pants. Although in the case of Grace, she doesn't like using the word piss, even though she's clearly willing to cross some moral boundaries since she obviously stole those keys from her dad. Regardless, though, the plan is basically film the whole thing, post it online, and when everyone sees it, Max will have lost his power, and thus he won't be able to hurt anybody, and nobody will be intimidated by him. As such, the group is a little hesitant about this, but they are convinced and decide to go through with it. And as such, they spend a good bit of time getting the Waylon place ready. Everyone gets into Peter and Ruth end up getting into costumes, with Peter dressing up as a ghost while Ruth dresses up as a skeleton. Richie has the camera, and Steph's job is basically to invite Max to the house under the pretense of some big event going on. In this case, Steph invites him under the pretense of a party. And as such, the plan does seem to almost go off without a hitch, as the day comes for the prank to happen, and Max does end up arriving on the scene, but clearly a little bit tipsy as he's carrying with him some beers, thinking he's coming to a party. And upon arriving, well, the prank immediately goes off as they play spooky sound effects, and Peter arrives on the scene dressed as the spirit of old Mr. Waylon. And it actually works! Max actually believes that he's witnessing a ghost right now, and he is terrified. He even says that this is probably one of the few things he's scared of most. The only thing is, he's actually pretty fucking brave, as he decides instead of running from his fears, he's going to confront them head on, as he actually wants to fight Peter. And Peter runs away before Max can do anything to him, and when they bring Ruth out in her skeleton costume, he gets freaked out by her too, but once again, he hypes himself up and says, no, you can't go back home to your dad who will call you a cuck. You gotta stand up for yourself right here, right now. And he goes to try and fight Ruth. It's hilarious. And as such, things get so out of hand that Steph has to come in and calm Max down and lets him know, no, these aren't real. This is all a prank. And as such, everyone comes out and reveals that they were just trying to take Max down a peg, and rather than being pissed off, Max thinks this is the nicest thing they could have ever done for him. He thinks that was amazing. Like when they came out, and like when Peter came out dressed as the ghost, when Ruth came out as a skeleton, he felt his heart pounding. He was excited. He thought it was amazing. And he suddenly looks at everyone and thinks, you know what? maybe I had you guys all wrong. Maybe you guys are pretty cool. Maybe you guys really are better people. Maybe we could be friends. And as he says that, he stands on a banister and falls off. Yeah, earlier in the play, Peter mentioned how the integrity of the house really wasn't that great, and well, yeah, that bad integrity pays off as we see Max falling 3 stories. Well, we don't see it as the actor just jumps off stage, but yeah, the sound effects make it clear he takes quite a long fall. As such, everyone freaks the hell out and runs to go to Max, and well, it turns out the fall was more dangerous than anyone realized because he has several planks of wood jutting out from his chest. So, yeah, he's not surviving that. And as such, in his final moments, he pretty much takes back every nice thing he said about these people as he says, "Look at what you nerds made me do!" And basically, in his final moments, he curses all of them. Not just the nerdy kids, but also Steph because she sided with them, claiming that they all deserve to pay. That nerdy Prudes must die. And with those last words, well, he passes away right there. Naturally, everyone begins freaking the hell out about this because essentially they just murdered a guy. There's no getting out of this. And so while they're wondering what the hell they're going to do, that they think they're going to go to juvie, they're going to go to prison, and think that everything is just stacked against their favor, especially since the video they were originally planning to take of Max clearly implicates them in luring him to the house, and they did not catch the moment when he accidentally fell off. Well, Grace decides that no, this was actually the will of God. We don't have to go to prison for this. This was his divine will. Max was a perv, and now he's dead. Our job is just to hide him away now, so we don't get in trouble. It is his will, after all. At which point, she ends up talking everybody into helping her bury Max's body, mostly by chopping him up into pieces so that he can fit under the floorboards of the house. So, yeah. Everyone, kind of not knowing what to do, just goes along with what Grace suggests, and they all, as the song puts it, bury the body. It's dark shit. From there, the play cuts ahead to 2 weeks later, and sure enough, Max's absence in the town is noticed like I said, he was the star quarterback, so him disappearing is going to get some people to notice. However, nobody's looking for him. Even when the mayor has to address the press and tell everybody that he's going to be rededicating the forces to the town for something, it's not to try and find Max. He's actually instead going to be redirecting the forces to the coach of the Hatchetfield High School because, hey, guess what? The big game's coming up, and they're going up against the Clydesdale Chemists. And yeah, as we all know in Hatchetfield, fuck Clydesdale. So they were more concerned with winning the game instead of looking for Max. And the thing is, everybody's lives are better. Yeah, it turns out that Max was a very heavy negative influence in Hatchetfield, as everybody in the high school is actually having more fun. Like, one of his friends that wanted to date a cheerleader is finally able to date her, as the only thing that was stopping it was Max telling him, no, you can't date her. Everybody's actually nicer to one another. The nerdy kids seem to be breaking bread with the cool kids. Even Richie, who apparently was dressed as the Hatchetfield team's mascot, the Nighthawk, is treated with more respect by the football team because the only reason they were bullying him was because they were afraid of Max's wrath. And with him gone, they're basically like, well, we appreciate you now. We everything you do. We appreciate everything you do. Whenever we falter on the field, all I have to do is look over and see you falling over yourself, and I'm reminded why we like playing. So objectively, everyone's lives are better, even to the point where when we meet back up with Peter and Steph, they're trying to feel bad about Max's death, but everything is just objectively doing well. They don't see a reason to feel sad. On top of that, Steph's apparently been doing well since the last time we saw her because thanks to Peter's tutoring, she was able to get her grade up to a C+, which is a passing grade, so her dad gives her phone back. And as such, we once more see Peter and Steph sharing some more chemistry, as Steph asks Peter if he wants to come with her to the football game, and while Peter normally didn't go, because Max doesn't let nerds go to the football game, well, since Max is gone, why not go? And as such, he and Steph have a date to go there. So, again, everyone seems to be doing better. Everyone's excited. We even get a cool song sequence as everyone is celebrating the new status quo, getting ready to going out and face the Clydesdale Chemists. Everybody's just having a good time. However, during the halftime of the game, when the team ends up talking with Richie, and this is where they actually compliment him, but they also give him a little bit of flack. He smells like ass. yeah, apparently Richie has overactive sweat glands, and so the team basically tells Richie that he needs to take 5 for a little bit, because the costume smells, he smells, they urge him to take a shower before going back onto the football field. As such, Richie takes their advice, and something I forgot to mention is that Richie's nickname is Shit Lips, since his last name is Lipshits, or Lipshits, and so while before that name was used as derogatory terms by Max, here it's a term of endearment since they're now on better terms. But yeah, Richie is happier, and as the team leaves him in the locker room, he strips out of his costume and is getting ready to take a shower because he thinks life's good. He's happy to be alive right now. Everything's better. Until he hears a voice hauntingly calling out his name in the locker room. And when he calls out to the voice, he begins wondering, is it the team again? Well, they said they weren't bullying him right now. What's going on? And the voice responds, oh, I remember what I said. And we soon see who the source of the voice is. It's Max Jaegerman. Only he looks a bit more deadish than we last saw him. As, well, he's still, like, Max's outfit throughout the entire play is a varsity jacket. And he's still wearing it, but it looks like it's a little bit more tattered, torn up. His skin is pale, but it looks like little blue veins in there. And his chest is clearly stained with blood, and his eyes are sunken in. He's pretty much dead. A ghost at this point, or a demon, whatever it is. Point is, he is not of this world anymore, and he's very much pissed. And as such, this also leads to, well, the song this play is named for, Nerdy Prudes Must Die. And it's basically Max's villain song, and it's a damn good one. I highly recommend looking it up. But basically, the whole gist of the song is that Max is actually thankful for his new position in life, or should I say, the afterlife. As well, now that he's dead, he thinks he's got it. He says he has a new mission. He's not angry at Richie and co. for killing him and then chopping him into little pieces. But now but he thinks the world's just a mite too peaceful. That the nerds and the geeks have too much power, and he's here to get rid of them. And which, of course, in other words, all nerdy prudes must die. And he's starting with Richie. And again, it also leads to one of the best moments in the song where he asks Richie to pray, where the bridge is the song is having Richie repeat after him. It's, again, I can't do it justice. I just recommend looking up the song. It's really damn good. But at one point during the song, Richie does stand up to Max, saying that he's not a nerdy prude and he's not a loser. And well, Max to say, of course you're not. But you have lost everything. And he basically closes in on Richie, which is what leads to the murder scene that we saw at the beginning of the play. So, yeah. Richie's dead. And unfortunately, there are lasting consequences from it. As we cut back to the Chastity home, and apparently Grace had a nightmare involving Max, and in the nightmare she thought that Max wasn't sexy at all, so she thinks she's cured, but as she goes downstairs to meet with her parents for breakfast, her dad mentions that he finally sold the Waylon place, which when Grace hears that is immediately shocked and horrified by. However, no sooner does Grace's dad say this, that he gets a phone call, and when he picks it up, it's from the house inspector that was inspecting the old Waylon house, and they found something. And what I love is that it leads to the gag where he says, you don't say. What did they find? He didn't say. I don't know, it's a great joke. But basically, Grace's dad wants to go out to the old Waylon place because of whatever it is they found, and of course, Grace starts freaking out a little. As such, she arrives in school, and everybody in school is a bummer because apparently their team, the Nighthawks, lost. Which part of the reason for it is because apparently their mascot wasn't out because he died. But immediately Grace arrives on the scene and starts freaking out because she tells Peter, Steph, and Ruth about the Waylon place being sold, which nobody likes. But while in the midst of Grace's freaking out, she thinks that they all got their asses covered. They covered their tracks back at the Waylon place. They not only buried Max, but they bleached the place down. There's nothing that can tie them back there. Although Grace does admit that she lost her "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet while they were there, and she thinks that maybe she put it back on, maybe she didn't. I don't know. But point is, everyone's freaking out which is made worse by the appearance of the police, with the principal calling this quartet of students to the principal's office to meet with them. And as such, the students do meet up with the police officers there, but when they're questioned about a murder, they at first assume that it's Max that the police are talking about, as the police use very ambiguous terms about a key player about not being present during the big game last night. if they apparently he was friends with these people, and and that they'd like to know when they last saw him. And ultimately they all give some very incriminating responses without actually mentioning Max's name. But eventually when they learn that the one that died was in fact Richie, since he was the mascot, the group is like, what? Which gets Grace to try and backtrack a little bit, saying, oh yeah, we have nothing to do with that murder. It's like, we don't have anything to do with any murder. It's a fun, again, I love this stuff. But immediately the interview is cut short as the police get word about what was found at the old Waylon place, and sure enough, it's Max Yeagerman's remains. And as such, they go out to the old Waylon place to investigate that. As such, everybody begins freaking the hell out. Not just because not just because that Max's remains have been found, but Richie has been killed. And the thing is, before the police left, they did tell the students about the bloody message that was found there. And since it's the same last words that Max said before he passed on, they begin thinking that there may have been someone else at the Waylon place the night Max Yeagerman died. And of course, all of them try and brush it off and try and cover their asses, but yeah, everybody's tense. And ultimately, Grace takes the words of maybe there was someone else there to heart, as she thinks that she has the perfect way to get the police off their trail. In the meantime, though, Hatchetfield begins freaking out because, well, there are two students have been found dead, and so now people begin suspecting that there's a serial killer in the midst, which the mayor does not help, the mayor fans the flames of everybody's paranoia, as during a press meeting, he mentions how he's going to give a curfew to Hatchetfield, as after a certain time of night, anyone below the age of 18 is not allowed to leave their home. So the only exceptions being school, and in the school, police officers are going to be guarding all the entrances and exits. So basically, everybody has to cover their ass. Which also leads to another song, which is technically pointless, but is a good way of emphasizing the paranoia that's running throughout the town. As when the press ends up questioning the mayor about the killer's identity, the mayor says, "Well, it couldn't be me. Maybe it was you," and intentionally stokes the fires among the press as they lead into the song "Hatchet Town," which also is a pretty damn good song, as they begin blindly accusing people, including a running gag character that Hatchetfield plays who's always in a hurry, and we actually get to see Gerald, yes, Linda's husband, and as we see him on the phone with his wife saying, "Linda, get my lawyer." It's fun, I like it. But things are getting even worse, and things continue going downhill as we cut to Ruth, as she's staying after school to help with the production of a play called The Barbecue Monologues, or whatever it's called, as she's in charge of lighting. And so during one of the rehearsals, everyone takes 5 while Ruth is left alone on stage to adjust the light, which leads to, in my opinion, one of the few superfluous songs in this play, as I guess it's supposed to be a song about her wanting to be in the spotlight and wanting to have life to her, which in most cases I'd be okay with, but it feels rather superfluous since a lot of the stuff is things we kind of already know about her or can be implied, and I feel it's only really there to try and give us a bit more of an extra attachment to her before she kicks the bucket. Because after her song is done, she gets booed in the audience, and in the peanut gallery is Max Yeagerman, who is here to kill her by giving her a wedgie so hard it splits her in half. It's not fun at all for her. And as such, Max drops her body and leaves, and so the teacher in charge of everything arrives on the scene and finds Ruth's body. In the meantime, we cut to Grace as she's at the police station, and basically she talks to the head detective and tells her that she thinks she knows who's behind the killings of Max Yeagerman and Richard Lipschitz. And as such, she mentions how about a couple weeks ago she saw Max Yeagerman at the old Waylon place jumping the fence, which she paid no mind to until she saw a truck riding up there, a truck with a bumper sticker that said "Chemists," like the Clivesdale chemists. So clearly, someone in Clivesdale must have killed him, and probably killed Richie too, because if they're tied to the chemists, they obviously want to go after their football team, so why wouldn't they go after the mascot? And as far as Grace is concerned, all of Clivesdale is guilty, so they need to be investigating those. And the police officer is like, "Wow, that's gonna take us a while to investigate. Thank you for that, Grace. Oh, by the way, when we last interviewed you, you left your bracelet behind." And sure enough, the detective pulls out Grace's "What would Jesus do" bracelet, and Grace is happy and says thank you. She's been looking for it everywhere. She puts it on, but before Grace can leave, the police officer mentions that she lied, that she didn't find it during the interview. She found it at the old Waylon place when they uncovered Max Yeagerman's body. So yeah, Grace got caught in a lie. As such, the police detective immediately starts questioning Grace and demands to know what the hell she knows, and Grace just begins freaking out as she claims this is all his will, and it's God who's doing it, and God's the one leaving her with a bag, and she even screams up to the heavens saying, "Do something, you son of a bitch!" It's actually, again, it's very hypocritical. Funny, though. But, yeah, basically the detective wants to put her under arrest, but as another officer comes up, Grace actually tackles the officer and takes his gun, and then just tells everyone to not follow her as she runs out of the police station. And as such, the leading detective ends up putting out an APB on Grace. As such, from there, we cut to Beanies. Yep, we cut to Beanies, and sure enough, who should be there but Paul and Emma? As we see Paul basically trying to chat up Emma at the counter, as clearly they're not a couple in this timeline. But Paul and Emma are still doing well. There clearly are sparks flying, especially when Paul mentions he's always on the neighborhood watch. And while we do see them getting a little closer, well, we also get a repeat of the hot chocolate gag from the first play, as we see Peter come up and says, "Excuse me! I've been waiting here for what feels like 5 fucking years, and I still haven't gotten my goddamn hot chocolate." That's a great gag. I love it. As such, Emma does provide Peter with it. Emma does provide Peter with his hot chocolate, though she quickly spits in the cup before giving it to him. As such, Peter takes the hot chocolate and goes to sit down with Steph, as the two of them are trying to figure out what the hell they're gonna do, and they basically start kind of going into panic mode as they start trying to blame each other and even accuse the other person of having the hots for them, hence why they keep hanging out, which does lead to another song, which kind of exemplifies how close the two have become. It's nice, but everything gets kind of put on hold as Grace enters Beanies as she brandishes the gun and points it at Peter and Steph, as she basically is like, we gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of the country. We're gonna go straight to Canada. And while Steph is like, we're not gonna help you flee the fucking country. He's like, listen, if I'm going down, you hoosers are coming with me, eh? I don't know, I find that funny too. But yeah, the police immediately arrive at Beanies, and while Paul does try to assist the officer in charge because he's had a neighborhood watch, the officer is the stereotypical trigger happy cop, and he basically just throws Paul on the ground, which in turn allows Peter, Steph, and Grace the chance to get out of Beanies and run into an alley. Thankfully, before they can go anywhere, Steph is able to get the gun away from Grace, and Grace herself just kind of has a breakdown because she basically she's like, "Oh, I've been doing this the last few days that I'm not supposed to. I lied. I stole. I called God a son of a B word. Also, you committed murder. Yeah, but that was something we all did. So it's actually kind of funny, and it's really funny. But eventually the group someone comes to. I'm not going to say lend them a helping hand, but at least get them out of there, as who should show up but Steph's father. And Steph wonders how the hell he knew where they were, and he admits he's been bugging Steph's phone since she was 12. So he knows everything about her, where she's going. And he begins chastising his staff for, well, the murder of Max Jaegerman, as the one time that he took her phone away from her, she went and committed a murder. And you know what? It's not the murder that he has a problem with. Like I said, she could commit murder, and he would find a way to try and make sure she got away with it without harming his pristine reputation. But it was the fact that she committed a murder at the old Waylon place that concerns the mayor. And as such, he orders the 3 kids to get into his limo, and they drive away. And as such, during the limo ride, the mayor tells the 3 kids exactly what's going on. You see, all those legends about the old Waylons, they were true. They were cultists, they were monsters, and basically for 150 years they ruled the town with their dark, twisted powers. And sure enough, just like in the legends, they were carved up by a group of axe-wielding maniacs in their own home. But the thing is, another part of those legends was true. After they died, their spirits lingered. As there's an old saying, nothing that ever dies in the Waylon place stays dead. And that's because, apparently, the cults that the Waylons were a part of, the Church of the Starry Sky or something, hold on one second, I'll check it. Sorry, the Church of the Starry Children, they cast a spell on the Waylon place. Basically, if anything should die in that place, then the spirit will linger. It's why there were legends about the Waylons still roaming around despite their death. And guess the thing is, that spell is still active on the place. There are more... Max died there. And so his death wound up triggering the spell and transformed him into what he is now. This almost unstoppable, completely invulnerable spirit or demon or whatever whose main goal in life is to kill all nerdy prudes. And the thing is, he's not just going to go after Steph, Peter, and Grace. No. He said nerdy prudes must die. Not just these specific kids, all nerdy prudes. Anyone that Max considers nerdy in any way, he will consider a target, meaning everybody around the world. And considering how powerful he is as the spirit, nothing can stop him. He can go where he wants, be whatever he wants, do whatever he wants, and no mortal weapon can stop him. After all, he's already dead. They can't hurt him. Hell, going back to the scene where he murdered Richie apparently at one point tried running away, but all Max had to do was snap his fingers and the door slammed in Richie's face. So it's clear that running and hiding are not going to be viable options. Max will find them. And as such, the mayor tells Steph, Peter, and Grace that they started this mess and they got to clean it up. And so the limo stops somewhere in the woods. And so the mayor has the kids step out and he orders them to dig in a specific spot, even giving them a shovel. And sure enough, they dig in this specific spot and they find a book. A strange book with a symbol on the front. And the mayor exposits that this book was the source of the church's power. This book is supposed to contain a bevy of spells and rituals that tapped into whatever demonic entities that the Waylons and their cult worshipped. And while Grace thinks it's possibly Satan, no, the mayor says that these things are a lot worse, and that if they want to stop Max, then they need to invoke the names of the gods that the church worshipped. They need to make a bargain with the Lords in Black. Unfortunately, though, no sooner does the mayor say this, that Max arrives on the scene, very much intending to go after our three remaining heroes. As to ensure that they don't have any protection, he ends up killing Miss Tessmacher, even throwing her head onto the scene, and as such, the three kids end up making a run for it, leaving the mayor behind. And sure enough, as Max arrives on the scene, the mayor tries pleading for his life, even though a second earlier he told the kids that they couldn't bargain with Max, so I don't know. He said his life is being threatened. Of course he's going to try whatever he can. And he tries to tell Max that he's not a nerdy prude. He's a mayor. He's an elected official. He can do things for Max. He can buy him beer if he wants. He has connections. Yada, yada, yada. But Max doesn't really give a shit. He doesn't care about politics. He thinks it's for nerds. Ergo, he thinks the mayor is a nerd. And so he grabs a shovel and pretty much decides to go cave the mayor's skull in, which he does off stage. So, he's dead. As such, while Steph is obviously distraught that her dad just got killed trying to save her, the trio of children really don't have a lot of time to think about that right now, because they need to stop Max. They need to invoke the names of the Lords in Black, but they can only do it in one of 5 specific locations around town. A black altar, as the book is called. And as they look to the map of Hatchetfield in the book, it turns out that all the structures that the Waylons had built around the town were the sites of the black altars, one of which was at the Waylon house, but another at where the old schoolhouse was, meaning the Hatchetfield High School. As such, the group wants to try and make a run to the Hatchetfield High School, but they're intercepted by the police detective who ends up finding them and arrests them, believing that these 3 are the ones that killed both Max Jaegerman and Richie. As such, Grace does try to tell the leading detective that Max is the one that came back from the dead, but the leading detective isn't listening to it because she saw Max's remains. And logic dictates that people should be able to come back from the dead, which she immediately kind of takes back, as while they're at a stoplight, who should appear outside the car but Max, who wants to come in, causing the detective to basically floor it on her car and make a run for it, stating how she wishes that she never left Chicago, only for Max to manifest in the car and tell her if he wants to see the Windy City, he could pretty much throw her through the window, and so he basically caves her head into the windshield of the car, causing it to crash. Thankfully, nobody dies. Even the police officer, while knocked out, is not dead. Although Peter doesn't realize that she isn't dead because when he checks her pulse, he has absolutely no idea how to check for one. But regardless, the trio realizes that if they want to stop Max, they need to get to the Black Altar and in the high school. And so the 3 of them make their way to the high school, and they find a safe place in the gym as they get out the Black Book and begin invoking the names of the Lords in Black. And it's a pretty good song sequence, and I love the tense atmosphere as they say the names. You can hear the chorus repeating them over and over. It's actually pretty terrifying as the lights begin flickering. It's all these different colors going around. and eventually the stage lights go black, and we hear one little sentence. Hello, friendy wens. And thus, we meet the Lords in Black. And it's here where I do want to mention why I regret possibly not looking at Nightmare Time before. Because the thing is, the Lords in Black are the rulers of the Black and White, the psychic realm that Wiggly is from Black Friday. In fact, Wiggly is the head honcho of the Lords in Black. In fact, he's actually here right now. As when the Lords in Black manifest, they take on humanoid guises. But rest assured, while they may look mortal, these are eldritch horrors from beyond time and space. And they are batshit insane, and I love them. But like I said, part of the reason why I kind of regret not looking at Nightmare Time for these vlogs is because, guess what? In Nightmare Time, we meet the individual Lords in Black one by one. Of course, we already know Wiggly, as he was the primary antagonist for Black Friday, but the other four Lords did appear throughout Nightmare Time, and it did allow us to get a sense of their own unique forms of chaos, disharmony, and just general inhumanity. The first of which is an entity called Blinky, who takes on the form of a mortal girl for this manifestation, but ultimately, his main gimmick is that he likes to enjoy the suffering of others. To him, it's just pure entertainment. He likes pushing people to their limit and just seeing them fall down the path, as to him, it's just nothing but utter enjoyment and entertainment, to the point where he has an entire theme park dedicated to it. The next one is Tinky, the Lord in Black who controls the power of time, and who will allow his power to be utilized by mortals, but only because he wants to see them misuse it, so that he can break their souls and then eventually absorb them into his toy box for him to play with however he pleases. After that, there's Nibbly, who will give vast rewards and riches to anyone who worships him, or her in this case, since Nibbly's taken on another humanoid form takes on another female humanoid form. But in order for Nibbly to give those sacrifices, he requires a sacrifice of the hungriest soul, i.e. someone that's so desperate for validation and desires more than anyone else that they're basically the perfect treat for Nibbly. And finally, there's Pokey, who, believe it or not, we've actually met before in another Hatchetfield play. And if you're trying to remember which play you saw him in before, well, let's just say he has a propensity for musicals. But, yeah. These are the Lords in Black, and like I said, they are batshit insane. Their opening is just really fun as they're just erratically moving and yelling and going, to hell and back we come and go, the Lords in Black. I can't repeat the lyrics, I don't remember them exactly, but it's just manic and insane, and I kind of love it for that. And on top, but what makes it even better is that the Lords keep shifting between these insane singing and weird movements, and then just immediately get still and calm, as while they still sound threatening, they're a lot more docile and friendly. And the Lords in Black are chomping at the bit to pretty much go after these kids. In fact, they already are fully aware of what's happening to these kids. They saw what was going on. Like Blinky thought Blinky enjoyed watching all the suffering. Nibbly wants to take a bite out of them. Tinky actually notes that Peter is a Spankowski, because here's a little fun fact: in the Nightmare Time episode that featured Tinky, he was messing with Ted, so he's got his soul in his little toy box. So if he gets Peter, he'll have the complete set. But yeah, basically, the Lords in Black are fully aware of what these kids want, and so Steph does implore the Lords in Black to help them stop Max. And Wiggly does tell them, yes, they could help them. They have the power to stop Max, but why should they? After all, they like seeing Max cause this much pain and destruction, and these three are next on the chopping block, and they would love to watch it happen. As such, Steph says that obviously if they want the Lord's help, they're going to need to stake a bargain. They'll give them whatever they want if they can just get rid of Max. And as such, Wiggly pulls out his Christmas list, as he does think that there is something that the three have that the Lords in Black would want. Something small. Something that these three wouldn't even miss. They want that which is most precious to them. As such, Steph at first offers her cell phone, because to her, her cell phone is her entire world. That has everything that she cares about, so obviously this must be what the Lords in Black want. Only for all five of them to simultaneously tell her, we don't want your fucking cell phone. No. Wiggly tells Steph that they know what she wants, even if she doesn't know it herself. And so Wiggly steps towards the group and gestures towards Peter. And Steph realizes what the Lords want. That if the Lords are going to do anything about Max, then Steph needs to sacrifice Peter, that which he cherishes most. And while Steph tells them she doesn't want to do it, this leads to the Lords in Black telling her either pull a bullet in his brain or fuck off. And they use that exact language too. I kind of love that. And as such, with one more erratic song sequence and dance, the Lords in Black fade away. And because I really should have talked about it when I talked about the individual Lords in Black themselves, I want to talk about Wiggly's outfit. I love it. It's actually my favorite of them. Basically, Wiggly's outfit consists of a green varsity jacket with a W stitched into the breast. His hair is green, and it's the same actor who did his voice in Black Friday. And he has a crown on his head because he's the king of the black and white. And he has a backpack that looks like a Wiggly doll. I don't know. I just love that. But yeah, the Lords in Black vanish, and when Peter's confused what they meant by sacrificing, and Steph realizes she needs to have a talk with Peter. Unfortunately, they don't have a chance to have that talk as Max arrives on the scene, and Steph, Peter, and Grace have to make a run for it with Max chasing after. As such, Steph and Peter manage to make it out to the football field, and Steph basically just wants to keep running because she does not want to lose Peter. But at this point, Peter's been able to put two and two together and realizes that the thing that she cares about most is him, and that if they want to stop Max, then Steph needs to sacrifice him. Something that Steph isn't willing to do at all, and even tells Peter, sacrifice what you care about most. Your video games, your comic books, your Pokemon cards. I don't care, just I don't want to have to kill you. Only for Peter to reveal that it wouldn't be any better for him to do it either, because what he cherishes most is Steph. Meaning that regardless of who has to make the sacrifice, one of them is going to die. As such, Steph and Peter realize that they're screwed, but they have to make the sacrifice. Because if they don't, it's not just them that'll die, it's every nerdy prude around the world. They can't let Max go, they can't let Max run free. They have to do something. And as such, after the two of them do share one last song together about how much that they do care about each other, well, Peter volunteers himself to be sacrificed. As Steph holds up the gun, she has Peter in her sights, clearly struggling to pull the trigger, and Peter asks her that if things could have been different, would she like to go to prom with him? To which Steph says yes, before she pulls the trigger. Unfortunately, though, Max doesn't want his prey getting away that easily, because as she pulls the trigger, he decides to go Matrix mode. I'm not even kidding. He even makes stupid noises as everything freezes, as he just goes onto the scene going choo 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 choo, as he basically just grabs the bullet right out of the air. It's hilarious and funny and stupid and bad all at the same time. It's great. But yeah, basically he's here to kill both Steph and Peter, and first Max wants to go after Steph because he sees her as the Judas that betrayed him, and while Peter tries to defend her, he basically just knocks him aside saying, "Hey bro, I just took a bullet for you. Be a little more grateful," before knocking him to the ground as well. As such, Max has his big villain speech about how once he kills them, he'll kill all these other people around the world in other cities. He'll kill all of Clydesdale, because even as a ghost, apparently he still fucking hates Clydesdale. I guess everybody in Hatchetfield hates that town, even though they're sister towns. But after Max makes the Judas analogy with Steph, that's when Grace arrives on the scene and says, "So you have read the Bible." At which point, she starts putting the moves on Max. Something that everybody is actually confused by. Steph and Peter are seeing her are starting to talk dirty, and they're like, "The fuck am I looking at here?" At which point Grace just starts trying. At which point Grace talks about how she's mixing up a big old bowl of dirty soup, which you're actually like, ugh. It's like, "Oh no, that's what you call my bathwater and my sexual fantasies about you." It's like, "That's sick. I like it." And as such, Grace tells Max to take her under the bleachers, right at the 40-yard line. And while Max tells her that he's got to kill these guys first, Grace pretty much just says, "No, come on, don't you want me, or do I need to find another stud to ride?" At which point, Max has a clear internal conflict, Before he decides, fuck it, I'm having sex, as he tells Peter to wait there as he runs with Grace under the bleachers. And while we don't actually see it, the grunts and moans that they make clearly show that they're having sex. And Steph and Peter just watch like, oh my god, they're fucking doing it! Where they both just awkwardly look away as both Grace and Max start yelling out, with Max yelling out, I am Jaeger Man and I am a god! It is the dumbest thing I have ever not borne witness to, but it's glorious. It's kind of glorious. And as such, once the act is done, Grace walks back onto stage. Her clothes a little ruffle as she pulls a cigarette from God knows where and starts smoking. At which point Max comes out and just starts lying on the bleachers, saying, "Hey, do you want to do a bit? Oh, where are you going? Don't you want to cuddle a little bit?" I don't know. I kind of love that, but no. Grace says that she doesn't really need to do that. She just gave Max a gift, her chastity, and which, guess what, is the thing she cherishes most. And sure enough, that counts, because no sooner does she admit that immediately the area is filled with the demonic laughter of the Lords in Black. Max begins reacting as invisible forces hold him in place, and from his perspective alone, he sees the eldritch horrors of these beings whose names all sound like fucking Teletubbies. And we hear the voice of Wiggly tell him, "Welcome to my world, bitch." And Max screams in horror at these monsters, telling him he doesn't want to go, Or finally saying, "Yeah, whatever, it was worth it," before he's dragged away into Drowsy Town, aka the Black and White. And thus, Max is stopped for good. From there, the play cuts to later, possibly another week or so, I don't know. But the day of the homecoming has come, and despite the recent losses of people, students, and yes, even the big game, everyone's spirits are trying to remain high, and as such, the homecoming happens as Steph and Peter go to the homecoming together. Grace arrives because, well, she was originally trying to get this place shut down. She had a change of heart and is now going with one of the other football players who goes to church every Christmas and not Thanksgiving, Easter, yes, Easter. And she thinks that they'll work on it, but yeah, it's actually looking like a happy ending. We even see the police detective, and she basically has just dropped all charges against Grace, Peter, and Steph, because at this point, she just kind of wants to forget the whole thing. She does not want to get involved, and even with people disappearing and dying, well, it's Hatchetfield. Apparently people die there, apparently people disappear there every day, so whatever. But yeah, we get to an honestly fun song sequence as everyone is celebrating and everyone's happy. Steph and Peter are celebrating their newfound relationship. It's all nice and sweet, and looks like we're ending the play on a rather triumphant note, as all the characters we love and care about have made it out in one piece, and everything's all hunky-dory. Except there's one more scene at the end, as we see Grace and her date after the homecoming, and they seem to have had a good time, as Grace says that they could make everything better. You know what would make the night perfect? If they had a little kiss. And so Grace and this football player kiss, and Grace calls the act disgusting, that this is just the first date. Why would he kiss on the first date? Which causes the football player to be confused, and so Grace reaches into her purse and pulls out the black book. And it's here where we get a reprise of Nerdy Prudes Must Die. Only in this case, it's not Max singing the song, it's Grace. And instead of Nerdy Prudes Must Die, she sings about how dirty dudes must die, as she sings about how she's going to use the power of this book and the eldritch horrors that it unleashes to go after any dirty dudes that she should cross paths with, consume their souls, make them stronger. And Max was only the beginning. She's going after all the dirty dudes, all the pervs. All of them are going to die. And as she sings about this, her date runs away in fear, as Grace looks at the audience and basically tells them, "Welcome to my world, bitch." Not those exact words. I don't remember what her last line was. But yeah, it's clear that Grace Chastity is fucking bonkers. So there you go. But yeah, that was Nerdy Prudes Must Die. And like I said at the beginning, I actually love this play. In fact, I'm going to go on record and say this. I think out of all three Hatchetfield plays, this one is my favorite. I think it is just the best play, hands down. I feel like this play, I mean, out of all of them, I feel like this play does a fantastic job at combining the horror and the comedic aspects so well. As ultimately, the story is one that is chilling and terrifying and contains enough horror elements. But when it wants to be over the top, it can be very over the top. And the over the top segments both manage to find ways to get you laughing and giggling, but also make you more terrified of our villain for the play. And to kind of go off on that, let's talk about Max Jaegerman as a villain. Like I said, this guy is in every respect of the word the stereotypical jock archetype. Like I said in the beginning, he's fully aware of what he is, but he genuinely does not give a shit. He knows what his role is in the grand scheme of things. He's just the dumbass football player. His sole duty is to wail on nerds and be king of high school or whatever. And he doesn't care. He knows what his role is. And he knows that once he gets out of high school, he's probably going to crash and burn. But ultimately, that just means that the time he has in high school is time that he's going to be treasuring for as much as he can. Because, well, he knows that once it's over, once the party's over, he's not getting any of this back. So live it up all you can, wail on as many nerds as you can, and if anyone tries challenging you, pound their face into the dirt and tell them to like it. That is Max Jaegerman. And quite frankly, that kind of is what makes him a fun villain. Yeah, he's unlikable in every sense of the word, but he's so fun to watch. He is a jackass and a prick, but he's, like I said, he knows he's a jackass and a prick, and intentionally leans into the stereotypes and tropes associated with his character, and it makes him so goddamn fun to watch. He is a joy. He's over the top, he's insane, he's scary, and this is all even before he turns into a ghost, because when we first meet him in the play, his first act is to go after Richie and then flick him in the nuts and yell at him because he dared to be in the same hallway as him. And then likewise, he's even willing to go after his friends if they do things he doesn't like when they badmouth Grace to him, and even then he's basically like, no one badmouths Grace Chastity, and I love it. I love that. It shows more of his hypocrisy. And then he ultimately, by the end, and even when he ambushes Peter in the parking lot outside Pasquale's, he makes it clear that he doesn't give a shit what the greater world thinks. He is the one in charge. He is high on his own juice, and he is going to keep chugging it down just because he enjoys the taste. And that sounds dirtier than I meant it to. I apologize. But the point is, he's his own biggest fan, and he's going to keep hyping himself up as much as possible. And again, all of this attitude and demeanor makes for a genuinely terrifying individual, because ultimately he can't be reasoned with, he can't be bargained with. He is just an asshole for the sake of being an asshole, and he loves every second of it. And ultimately, it makes him fun to watch, and it does make you want to see him get some much-deserved comeuppance. And then of course, he dies. And from there, what was already someone that was over the top and threatening turns into an even greater force. And quite frankly, it's even funnier to watch him on stage, because now he has nothing holding him back. His last words were, "Nerdy prudes must die," and he's fully intending on carrying that threat out as we see him go after Richie, Ruth, the mayor, his secretary, and even the police officer. This guy is just ready to wail on everybody and leave nothing but bodies in his wake. And he is just having a goddamn ball. And what makes it even better is that he still treats all these murders as if he's a fucking high school bully, which he still is. He has fun with it. He quips about it. It's almost like in the same vein as Freddy Krueger, with how much he says bitch and makes jokes and puns about the situations he's in. It makes him a lot of fun to watch, because when he arrives in the scene, you're afraid because like I said, because as they establish in the play, nothing can hurt him. But at the same time, you know that when he arrives on the scene, all subtlety is going to get thrown right out the goddamn window, and that makes him a joy to watch on stage. Even when he gets beaten when Grace intentionally has sex with him and offers her chastity to the Lords in Black, it is so goddamn amazing. Seeing him screaming and wailing for his life and not wanting to go, but we're finally just giving him and saying, you know what? It was worth it. I love that. And I just kind of love and the thing is, even the ending with Grace Chastity pretty much going off the deep end herself just convinces me that she and Max were made for each other. It makes me think that when she passes on, her soul's going to go to the black and white, and I can just imagine Max just waiting there for her and the both of them having very angry sex together. I don't know why. I love that. Love that thought. Point is, Max Jaegerman is a very fun villain for this play. Terrifying in execution, but just a joy to watch in every sense of the word, and it makes for a fun villain dynamic. Likewise, Grace Chastity as a character is, like I said, his perfect match. They may be from two very different worlds, but they are both two peas in a pod. Both of them basically embody the mindset of what I say goes, but from different points of view. For Max, the reason why he exercises his right to do whatever the hell he wants is because he's the star football player. Everyone else has to listen to him, and if anyone doesn't, he has every right to wail on them until they agree with what he wants. And likewise, when he eventually passes on and turns into a ghost and then basically wants to kill all nerdy prudes, as he puts it, that mindset is basically anyone that I don't like, I can kill just because that's my station now. I am allowed to do these things because I'm me, and that's all there is to it. With Grace, on the other hand, this mindset of I'm better than you and you need to do what I say comes from a moral superiority. Like I said when I first talked about Grace in this play, she is basically the very definition of the hypocritical Christian archetype. The kind of person that uses their faith as an excuse to belittle and look down on anyone that doesn't fall into what they believe is their perfect vision of someone. The person that thinks that just because you're gay, you deserve to rot in hell. The person that thinks that a transgender person should align with what the rest of the society wants just because them existing is unnatural. These are the kinds of people who basically will lecture you on your high horse, but the instant you try and call them out on their BS, they'll just say, no, that's different because I work for a higher power. So clearly everything I do is justified. And Grace basically exemplifies that mindset throughout the entire play. As while she acts all sweet and white bread and innocent and nice, it's very clear that in moments of stress or danger, she is very willing to throw her morals out the window just to save herself. When Max was killed during the botched prank at the Waylon place, she was the one that first suggested that they bury the body, that him dying was God's will. And then likewise, throughout the entire play, she believes that every attempt to try and cover this up is just doing the right thing, because obviously the Lord was the one that wanted Max dead, so it's ultimately up to her to keep everything in line. God ordained her to do all this, so clearly she has the tools to get out of this. And when things do not work out and she actually has to face real consequences for her actions, she starts breaking down, because she's supposed to be the good girl, the sweet innocent princess, and she's supposed to be the one she's supposed to be God's chosen angel or whatever. So the fact that she's actually being called the villain in the story does not sit right with her, and she basically is doing everything in her power to try and get back into that good girl mindset, even if it means threatening people with a gun in order to do it. And it basically just shows this side of her and shows what kind of a person she really is. And even the ending of the play just emphasizes how twisted her mind truly is, because the thing is, while she sacrificed something in order to get rid of Max, she didn't really. Here's the thing, like I said, what spurred her to want to prank Max in the beginning of the play was because she was having dirty fantasies about him. He was making her horny, so she thought he had to go. And so the thing is, when she finally tricks Max into having sex with her, because that's technically her sacrificing the thing that she cherishes most, which in this case is her sanctity, well, guess what? She had sex with the guy that she's been fantasizing about, and as someone whose death she actively celebrated. She thought she didn't want him to die because he was a bully who was terrorizing people. She wanted him to die because he's a pervy dude that needed to go. And the fact that his soul is not passed on yet and is killing people that he deems as nerdy prudes, that's an offense to her. Not just because he's threatening her, but just because he's a dirty dude who needs to GTFO. And so her having sex with him is both satisfying her horny desires and eliminating something that she already has a negative opinion on. Essentially, in her mind, her making this quote-unquote sacrifice was basically her rewarding herself, and thus it basically encourages her twisted views and mindset, because ultimately by the end, she's the one that did the job. She's the one that got rid of Max Jaegerman. She's the one that made the big call, and obviously she must be morally right. She still has the book. She's the one that banished Max, and even if the Lords in Black are these twisted eldritch horrors, she can, now that she has their power on her side, she can basically make the world into whatever she wants. Think of it like Kira from Death Note, except whereas Kira went after criminals, she's going after anyone that she deems a pervert. It's just fucked in the head, and it makes her, and in many ways, it makes her a genuinely fun character in just how hypocritical she is. So seeing her go throughout the entire play, constantly espousing that she's on this moral high horse, but seeing her do all these fucked up things just try to cover her own ass, it's honestly kind of hilarious. And in turn, also makes the twist ending with her revealing the Black Book and that she plans to use the powers of the Lords in Black to eliminate other dirty dudes by consuming their souls, as she puts it. Yeah, it's a terrifying revelation and a scary note to end the play on. So I'll give you that. It's actually really nice. I think as a character, I don't like her, but I think that's the whole point. It makes her more terrifying, more scary, and honestly more fun to watch when she just goes batshit insane. So yeah, like I said, she and Max, perfect together. And I'm sure he's waiting for her in the black and white. But even with that in mind, the tension throughout the play is really good, because even when things aren't going batshit insane, the tension regarding what's happening to everybody is palpable. Again, even when Max isn't around, you can feel his presence and know that he could be popping up anywhere. And this is both before and after he turns into a spirit. As before, even the idea of him being there causes people to freak out, and when he becomes a ghost, all you know is that someone needs to be left alone long enough, and he will appear and end their life in the most humiliating and painful way possible. And that in turn, it creates a greater sense of tension. Hell, even the lore that we get with Hatchetfield in the play really helps add a lot of depth to the darker side to this town and how it operates. When the mayor talks to his daughter and her friends about the Church of the Starry Children, and about how they basically revered the Lords in Black, it's treated with gravitas and weight, and honestly, I like that. Like I said in Black Friday, Wiggly was one of the few things in the play that was played completely straight. Okay, not one of the few things. There are plenty of things in that play that were played straight. But he was played straight, and I thought it worked perfectly for Black Friday. Because despite the fact that his name was Wiggly and he was indoctrinating people into his faith through a fucking doll, Wiggly was a terrifying creature. His childish way of speaking belied a dark and angry soul who basically was just one cut string away from fucking losing it. And thus seeing him again, so learning more about the lore surrounding him and his brethren is actually fucking terrifying. And honestly, I liked seeing the Lords in Black come back for the play. I'm not even kidding. When they appeared, it's clear that they were having fun. All of the actors playing them were clearly having a fucking ball when they were just going over the top. When they sang the lyrics, their erratic movements, it's just batshit insane, and really does a great job of reflecting the mindsets of the Lords in Black, because when it comes down to it, these are eldritch horrors beyond our understanding who see humanity as nothing more than a plaything, and they all have the mentality of children. They are all having fun. When Steph, Peter, and Grace are trying to make a bargain with the Lords in Black, the Lords are taking complete and utter delight in their suffering. They clearly hold all the cards. They know it, but they just want to twist the knife in just a little bit more. And I honestly love that. It makes them for them to be terrifying villains. Even if they're not the main antagonists in the play, it really does get a sense of just how monstrous these things are and how cruel they are. And again, going back to how erratic they are, it not only makes them fun to watch, but really does make you more afraid of what their next move will be. Because like I said, they switch between the erratic movements and yelling as they sing to just standing still, leaning in and talking in whispers and low voices. It's actually really good. Also, Pokey ends up singing a line from the guy who doesn't like musicals. Again. Yeah, that's a thing. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, again, it's a very again, I like seeing them, and as a horror element, I think it does work and does create a sense of unease and tension throughout everything that really does make make for a spooky, chilling experience. With that said, But that said, not only are the villains fun, in my opinion, but also the heroes. All of the our major main characters, in my opinion, are likable. Well, except for Grace, but she was written to be an irritating bitch, so I'll let that one slide. But the real core of everything lies with Peter and Steph. As ultimately, what I like about them is that they once more kind of fit into the thing that Hatchetfield likes to do, where they take pre-existing stereotypes for characters, but then twist them on their head. Case in point, Steph is the troublemaking daughter of the mayor who needs to constantly be bailed out of situations because the mayor doesn't want to tarnish his squeaky reputation. In a lot of other stories, she'd be the bad girl who wants to stand up to her controlling dad, and in some cases will probably become the villain. But in this case, with this story, we're actually presented with a rather complex character. And it's not just the fact that, and I don't mean complex as in, like, she's got, like, this deep backstory or anything. Ultimately, she is a teenager. She's selfish. She's she's arrogant, kind of full of herself, and she does make pig-headed decisions. Like when she wasn't, like how she didn't study for the test at the beginning of the play because she was up late the last night taking part in a Twitter war. And then, like, what? But at the same time, while she may be the cool kid, she's not above talking to people that are out of her, well, social class, so to speak. As while she initially introduced herself to Peter under the pretense of trying to help her cheat, when she actually got to know him, the more she got to liking him, to the point where he was her first call when she needed someone to tutor her to help get her grades back up. And then likewise, when Peter didn't show up to Pasquale's because he was getting his ass beat by Max, she wants to know what happened, and when she learns that Peter was getting hurt by Max, she wants to defend him. She wants to help him, and she actively takes part in the prank that ultimately took Max's life just because she doesn't want a jackass like Max dictating who does and doesn't get to talk to people. And I like that. And throughout the play, we do see that positive interaction. She keeps giving other people the time of day, and what I like to... And that's even, and again, it's not like she's the nicest person, as at one point, there's one scene where all the kids are setting up the prank at the Waylon place, and she and Ruth are talking, and Ruth's like, "You're so nice to me." It's like, I'm really not. I'm really just doing the bare minimum. I think you're my best friend. Oh, that's sad. I don't know. Which is funny. But again, the fact that she's not a complete and total bitch is a nice change of pace. And by the end of the play, when she realizes that she truly has developed feelings for Peter and may need to sacrifice him in order to stop Max, it's actually a really nice moment because you can see the denial on her face as she tries to both deny her feelings for Peter while also grappling with the fact that these feelings are there and not wanting to see Max die just for the sake of saving the world. I like that. And ultimately when she and Peter do have their mutual moment where Peter does pretty much tell Steph, "It's fine, I understand, we need to stop Max," it's very heartfelt. And the last line they share before Steph pulls the trigger, where Peter asks her out to the prom, is really sweet and really nice, and I love that. And on that same note, I like Peter. I like Peter Spankowski. And, yeah, again, Spankowski. But I like him. Again, he is sort of the stereotypical nerdy character, but again, he has more layers to him. Again, part of the reason why he had his nerdy attire in the beginning was because each of them was for something specific, like the bow tie. Well, that was purely aesthetics, but the suspenders, they were there to help keep his pants up because, well, guess what? His pants got pulled down in second grade, and he doesn't want that to ever be repeated. But then, likewise, after he and Steph talk, and she comments on his bow tie and suspenders, the next time we see them, they're both gone. He's wearing regular pants, and the bow tie is gone. In fact, the next time we actually see him with a bow tie in the entire play is when he and Steph are at the dance together. It's actually, and so clearly he does take stock in what Steph says, and what I like is that through Steph he does gain a bit more self-confidence in himself. He does gain a bit more self-confidence as when Steph calls him funny, and thus it encourages him to maybe be a little bit more loose. When Steph asks if he can tutor her, he gets enough of a boost to himself that he's willing to even stand up to Max, even though that gets his ass whooped. And even by the end, seeing him, Steph, and by extension Ruth, Richie, and Grace all working together, it does show that their bond is strengthening. And the fact that Steph and Peter do share more moments together is genuinely nice and heartfelt. And again, despite the fact that he clearly does in some ways fit into the nerdy archetype for a character, at the same time, it does make him much more it does still give him more. It still gives more to him. It does make you want to see him come out okay, because at the end of the day, he is just a nerdy kid who just wanted a break. And as a result, seeing him actually achieve this happiness with Steph by the end of the play is really nice, and I dig it. And ultimately, Steph's the one that helps make him stronger. So seeing him even stand up to Max both before and after his death is actually really nice, and it does make for a much better thing. And love the dynamic. It's fun. I love their characters. Just some sweet stuff. Likewise, even the superfluous characters in my eyes do have their own times to shine. Richie and Ruth are fun as comic relief characters, and they work off of Peter rather well, as they both fit into their own specific nerdy archetypes. As Ruth is pretty much the depraved teenager who is so desperate for human contact that she'll keep telemarketers on the phone longer than they should be, while Richie is basically just an otaku. And what I love is that they have a casting gag at one point in the play because the guy who plays Richie is the guy who played Paul in The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, and likewise the actor who plays Peter is the same guy who played Ted in The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. And so there was one scene in The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals where when Paul saw the flash mob of people who break out into a song, and then he told his coworkers about it. Ted's like, "Did you get it on film?" And Paul's like, "No." It's like, "You're fucking useless, Paul." And Ted walks off. They do the inverse of that in this play, as when Peter and Richie are setting the whole thing up, Richie tries talking Peter into getting together with Ruth because she's so desperate and needy that she would happily give herself to Peter, no questions asked. That he could just tap it and he could just tap that and then just ditch her. And Peter's like, "I don't want to though." And Richie's like, "Oh, come on, fucking useless Peter." I don't know. I like the casting gag. It's fun. So, but yeah, again, Richie and Ruth I think were nice comic relief characters, and I did feel sorry enough for them when they were killed off in the play. So I like that as well. Likewise, I love the humor. I think the humor is still very fantastic. Like I said, this play definitely goes more over the top with its scares and its humor, and it shows, and it makes for a genuinely fun experience. And like I said, the over-the-top nature of the humor not only makes this play a lot funnier and much more of a joy to watch, but it also makes it extremely uncomfortable because you can see the lengths that the characters are willing to go to in order to get what they want. Max Jaeger may be a stereotype, and a fun stereotype at that, but the fact that he leans into these tropes fully means that he has nothing to lose, both before and after he dies, and thus he will happily go over the top with hurting someone just because he thinks it's fun, which in turn makes you more scared of him when he shows up, because you know that whatever he's going to do to you, it's going to hurt like hell, and the only way you can survive is to get as far away from him as possible. And depending on your level of success, really depends on whether he's alive or dead when you meet him. So that's another thing. So that's the thing I like. But again, the over-the-top nature can honestly be fun. Going back to when the Lords in Black first introduced, I loved how insane and over the top they were. It was actually fun. It still maintained how serious and threatening they were as these eldritch horrors from beyond time. But at the same time, I was also like, God damn, these people are having fun, and it's kind of infectious. But even then, there's still plenty of good jokes and humor to be found throughout. Again, Richie and Ruth act as good comic relief characters as they fit into their archetypes well. I love Peter's reaction when he's working off of them. Steph and Peter, while having a genuinely fun relationship, are actually funny when they interact with one another. And something that I find to be a slight double-edged sword is Steph's father, the mayor, as I'm not going to call him abusive, because I don't think he does anything abusive throughout the play beyond threatening to smash his daughter's phone, and I think even that was a bluff, so I don't really know. It's just that he's not affectionate, if that makes any sense. He's very blunt, doesn't really do much to show much human emotion beyond just the straight seriousness. I am so done with you right now, emotional state that he showcases. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't hate him, don't like him either. It's just one of those things where I'm okay with his existence, but I don't really know how to feel about his existence too. So it's a strange middle ground. But there was a funny scene where when he did try to smash Steph's phone, she put her hand between. He's like, "Did you just try to put your hand between my hammer and the phone?" Like, I don't know. I actually did find that funny. And likewise, going back to Max, he has plenty of funny lines throughout as well, which in turn makes him more entertaining as a character. Again, Grace's hypocrisy and the lengths she goes to just to try and get rid of the bad influences is kind of funny. Again, the callback jokes to other plays are genuinely hilarious. So again, I also like that stuff. I like the jokes that come from Hatchetfield High being a much better place without Max around, as everyone thinks that, wow, who would have thought that removing one negative influence would change the mood so much? It's actually just I think that's fun. I love that. So when it comes down to it, yeah, I think the humor in the play is really damn fun. I think it's probably the best that we've seen so far. And finally, the music. I've already said this comment for the other two Hatchetfield plays, but it's consistent here. The music in this play is kick-ass. In fact, I dare say that this play is probably the best when it comes down to its musical numbers. All of the musical numbers, with the exception of maybe one, are all amazing, spectacular. All of them fit the scenes that they're in perfectly. They're charged with energy, really do help get across what the characters are going through, carry a lot of weight, can be threatening when they want to be, quirky when they want to be, scary when they want to be, lighthearted when they want to be, charming, funny. All of them are just joys to listen to, total bops. I already mentioned examples of like Nerdy Prudes Must Die / Dirty Dudes Must Die as being genuinely kick-ass villain songs. Sorry, I got a pet up her right now. Oh, she won't pet me. Let me pet her, sorry. But on top of that, the opening song "High School Is Killing Me" is a great song. Is a great opening number. Again, a literal monster song that we get when everyone reacts to Max's presence is a great song that helps set up the mood and sets up Max as a character. When the songs that Grace sings about when they're setting up the prank and they're burying Max, called "Bully the Bully" and "Bury the Body," are actually kind of fun and genuinely darkly humorous songs that I think are appropriately quirky, but also get enough WTF reactions, especially with "Bury the Body." So that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. Honestly, the only song in this play that I did not like was the song that Ruth sang before she was killed. I don't know, it just felt like it wasn't necessary. I understand what they were trying to do with it. They're trying to make you feel some sort of connection with her before Max kills her, and that connection is supposed to be how she has all these things in life that she strives for and all that, but I'm going to be honest, I don't buy it with her, especially since the root of her character seems to be that she wants human companionship. And in some regards, you could argue the song is about that, since she is yearning for more in life and does want more. But at the same time, it doesn't really do much for me when they're trying to establish all those feelings right now, and then immediately have her get killed off by Max. Again, I'm guessing that they're trying to do it to try and make her death mean a little bit more and make you feel a little bit more sorry for her. But honestly, I did not think that she deserved what she got at all. Hold on a sec. Sorry about that. Shindy jumped off the bed. But yeah. Again, her musical number I found was probably the only superfluous one that you probably could have cut out of the play, and I don't think it would have added or taken away, and I don't think it would have taken away anything at all. But honestly though, that's just one example out of many. Almost every other song in this play is great. The summoning ritual for the Lords in Black, the villain song for both Max and Grace, the romantic songs between Peter and Steph. All of them, in my opinion, are amazing and are very fun to listen to and bop your head to and maybe even dance along with. All of them are just amazing, and I think so far they're the best songs that the Hatchetfield plays have produced. And as a result, I just enjoy every one of them. So all of these factors combined, from a good mix of scares and humor, the over-the-top scenarios, the well-written characters, the great use of comedy, and the music, I can safely say that I think Nerdy Prudes Must Die is a fantastic play. And like I said, I think it's the best play in the entire Hatchetfield trilogy. It takes everything that works from the first two plays and manages to bring them all together into a brand new and unique experience that I think capitalizes on what came before and manages to create a brand new scenario. It improves in every way possible from the other two plays and is just a complete joy to watch. And ultimately, if you haven't checked this play out, I highly recommend it. Like with the last two plays, I'll put a link to it in the description, so if you want to check it out for yourself, be my guest. I promise you will have a fun time. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope you tune in next week as we conclude the Hatchetfield retrospectives by looking at, well, not really a play at all, but rather a short movie. One that took several timelines of horrors worth to get to as we take a look at Workin' Boys.